We are continuing today in our conversation on not just human revolution, but the connections between what happens when we as individuals go through a change for the better, and the way that that change for the better on an individual level also has resonance and can impact what's happening in the world around us. We are continuing with the words of encouragement from Daisaku Ikeda. And for those of you who are not familiar with that name, he is somebody, he's now an ancestor, who was a really prolific thinker and a leader of a group of a Buddhist community called the Soka Gakkai community. And as we learned last week from one of you who is a longtime Buddhist practitioner, he was also a little bit of a philanderer. So this is one of the reasons why whenever we are taking inspiration from somebody or something in the universe, we don't do it because that person is perfect. We recognize there is no perfect person, but we also recognize that inspiration can come through a variety of ways. And so that's why we provide empathy, and we move in a spirit of empathy so that we can better incorporate the wisdom in the world around us. And one of the things that we learned from Daisaku Ikeda's lectures on attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. Now, Buddhahood, and I know for some of y'all who are not a part of the Buddhist community, he's like, Buddhahood? What's Buddhahood? I only know Buddhahood. I am a fill in the blank name of your religion. And you should continue to be fill in the blank name of your religion. Buddhahood is this idea of achieving how do I describe it? Kind of like when you are walking in the best version of yourself. So I want to try to explain it without relying on another religion for an analogy, but sometimes it's hard. It's a state of enlightenment. It's like when you are awakened to like what is the true nature of reality. When you are, it's kind of like, boom. Okay, so I'm gonna have to use an analogy from another religion. You know, like how Jesus was like a regular schmegular human, but then when Jesus was his most perfect self, he was able to create miracles and like, you know, do all sorts of things that people who are regular schmegular, degular humans could not do. Right. So the ability of being perfectly in alignment, that is the state of Buddhahood. And for Buddhists who are in alignment with this belief system, the idea is that all of us have the capacity to sit and to walk and move and exist in that state of enlightenment. Right. And so don't get too caught up in the title. The idea is, think of it as you being your best self. And I know the Buddhists out there is like, girl, it means so much more than that. I know, but y'all, I ain't talking to a whole room full of Buddhists. I'm talking to like people from all different religions and belief systems. So being your absolute best, most amazing self, when you are in alignment, when your thoughts are in alignment, when your decisions are in alignment, when you are flowing in your purpose, like, and you are like, you're in your Zen space, that is like Buddhahood. Okay. At me later. Anyway, the point is, this is the inspiration that we're using today comes from this writing called On Attaining Buddhahood in This Lifetime, because the idea is that you should be able to attain that state of being, that oneness with your purpose. You should be able to attain that here on earth. It shouldn't be that you have to go become some ancestral being in order for that to happen for you, at least not according to the way this group of Buddhists believe. So anyway, here's the quote for today from this community. And the quote is the following: "When we change, the world changes. The key to all change is in our inner transformation, a change of our hearts and minds. This is human revolution." There's that notion of revolution again. The quote continues, "We all have the power to change, and when we realize this truth, we can bring forth that power anywhere, anytime, and in any situation." And that's the end of the quote. The reason this is so important is because a lot of times when we think about changing the world, it feels big and outside of us and ginormous and huge and overwhelming and difficult and stress inducing, because the idea of changing the world, I mean, there's so many factors. There's so many things that you know, so many things that you don't know. There's so many interconnected layers and levels, and changing the world feels really hard. Changing the world can sometimes feel overwhelmingly difficult. And when we keep the idea of changing the world as something that exists outside of ourselves, then yeah, you're going to feel the stress and the strain of that. But when we realize that we are an extension of the world, and the world is an extension of us, and sort of that concept that is sort of universal in a lot of religious faiths, as above, so below, as without, so within, meaning that we are not just existing as separate parts, but there is connection to us. The idea behind this particular sentiment is that when we engage in changing our own individual hearts and minds, when we are doing the work of becoming those better people who are learning to build better communities, who are then able to shape a better world, when we do that as individuals, when we recognize our ability to change as individuals, that is also going to change the world. Changing the world is not something that happens outside of us. It happens in only. It's not something that happens outside of us only. It happens within us first. Within us first. As we change our minds and when I say change our minds, I'm really opening up our minds to new information. And we realize, because a lot of times in America, particularly in American culture, when we get new information, we double down on the wrong information that we previously held our opinion on. And we formulate a sense of identity with our opinions instead of realizing, no, I am not my opinion. My opinion should be informed by the world in which I live. Because when we recognize that, quote, when we change, the world changes, and that the key to all change is in our inner transformation, a change of our hearts and minds, then changing the world is a lot easier. Or at least not quite as daunting. Because if changing the world really is about me changing myself, if changing the world and making this world a better place is really about me being the best version of myself that I can be, so that the decisions I'm making are the best versions of the decisions that I can make, so that the energy I put out into the universe is the best version of the energy that I can put out. And if we're all doing that, even those knuckleheads and buckleheads who ain't, become non-factors. Because when we realize the truth of this, according to the quote, we can, quote, bring forth that power anywhere, anytime, and in any situation. We all have the power to change. That is what human revolution looks like. And considering how dastardly the world is looking right now, it's kind of comforting to know that the change that we're seeking is not something that's big and bold and outside of us and impossible to get a handle on. It's big and it's bold and it's within. And it is available and accessible to us as soon as we make the decision to focus there, to sit in that space and do the day-to-day work of changing who we are as individuals, which has a direct connection to changing the quality of life on this planet and the quality of humanity within it. My friends, I don't know what it is today that gives you a sense of joy or gratitude or appreciation, but whatever it is, I do want you to hold on to it, cherish and nourish it, and sprinkle as much of the juicy goodness of it as you possibly can into the lives of other people, because Lord knows we could all use a bit more of it. And that, my friends, is today's moment of gratitude.